There's a moment that many of us face, though we often try to avoid it, realizing that someone we care deeply about doesn't feel the same way. It's a moment that stings, one that can leave us questioning ourselves, wondering if we're enough, if we're worthy of care and love. We start looking for signs, trying to make sense of what happened. And in that search, we often end up discovering behaviors in others that can be painful, but also incredibly revealing. These behaviors show us that someone may not care in the way we expect or deserve. And it's important to recognize them. Because recognizing these patterns not only helps us understand others, but also helps us heal and grow, so we don't remain stuck in unhealthy dynamics. The first behavior is the inability to listen. Listening is one of the most fundamental ways we show people they matter to us. It's how we give them space to be seen, to feel heard, to feel important. But when someone doesn't care, they stop listening. Conversations become one-sided with no space for your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences. They may not even notice when you're talking, their minds drifting elsewhere or focused on their own agenda. In these moments, you're not important enough to be heard. This behavior doesn't just reflect a lack of attention, it signals a lack of respect. And when that happens, we often feel unseen, unheard, and unimportant. But this is where we have to remember, it's not about us. It's about their inability to offer what we need, what we all need in connection. And it's not something we can control. Next comes the habit of dismissing your feelings. When someone doesn't care about you, they may minimize or outright dismiss how you feel. Your hurt becomes invalid, your joy becomes trivialized, your sadness becomes an inconvenience. You're overreacting, they might say, or you're too sensitive. It's an attempt to make you feel small, as though your emotions aren't worthy of the space you're taking up. The thing about dismissing feelings is that it creates a disconnect. It creates a world where your internal world doesn't matter, your vulnerabilities become burdens, and you start questioning if maybe, just maybe, you're the problem. But you're not. No one should feel like their emotions are something to be ashamed of. When people dismiss you in this way, they are showing you that they are incapable of offering you the care and emotional space you deserve. This is not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their limitations. A third behavior is the habit of avoiding accountability. Accountability isn't just about owning up to mistakes. It's about being mature enough to engage in difficult conversations, to take responsibility for how our actions affect others. When someone doesn't care about you, they avoid accountability at all costs. They deflect, they blame shift, they never apologize, or they apologize in a way that makes it clear they don't actually understand the depth of the hurt they've caused. They don't take ownership of their actions, and instead, they make you feel like you're the one who's overreacting, or worse, that you're the one who's at fault. When this happens, you're left feeling isolated, with no closure, no chance to understand, no chance to move forward. Without accountability, there's no way to repair a relationship, no way to build trust. This behavior shows that the person isn't invested in the relationship enough to work through the messiness of life and connection. And when that's the case, we are left with the truth that we are not as important as we deserve to be. Another behavior is the absence of empathy. Empathy is the foundation of any healthy relationship. It's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to try to understand what they're going through, and to offer compassion and kindness in return. People who don't care about you don't bother with empathy. They may see your struggles and pain as something to be avoided, something to be shrugged off. They don't feel your joy, your pain, your triumphs, or your losses. They're too focused on their own experience to consider yours. And when empathy is missing, we start to feel like we're walking alone in the world, surrounded by people who just can't or won't meet us where we are. This lack of empathy can be incredibly isolating. It forces us to keep our struggles to ourselves, to hide our vulnerability, because we know that there's no one there to truly understand us. And that feeling of loneliness in the presence of others can be one of the most painful experiences of all. Then there's the tendency to ignore boundaries. Boundaries are vital. They're how we tell others who we are, what we're willing to accept, and what we will not tolerate. People who don't care about you will ignore those boundaries. They'll push past them because they're not invested enough to respect your limits. This could look like disrespecting your time, your personal space, or your emotional needs. It might be someone demanding too much of you without consideration for your energy or your own responsibilities. When boundaries are ignored, it doesn't just feel like a violation. It feels like an erasure of who you are. It sends the message that you don't matter enough to be respected, that your needs aren't as important as theirs. And when this behavior becomes a pattern, it becomes not just disrespectful, but damaging to your sense of self-worth. The final behavior is manipulation. This one can be subtle and it can be insidious, creeping into relationships under the guise of care or concern. People who don't care about you will manipulate you to serve their needs. They'll make you feel guilty for needing space, or they'll twist your words to make you feel responsible for their actions. They may use your vulnerabilities against you or play on your insecurities to get what they want. In these moments, it's easy to lose yourself, to forget who you are, because the manipulation distorts your reality. You might begin to doubt your instincts, your judgment, and your worth. But the truth is, no one who truly cares about you would ever manipulate you in this way. They would stand by you with honesty, transparency, and respect, even when things are difficult. Manipulation reveals that the person is not interested in mutual care, but in maintaining power, control, and a sense of superiority. If you find yourself in a relationship where these behaviors are present, I want you to know that it is not your fault. It's not a reflection of who you are or of your worth. You are deserving of love, respect, and care. You are worthy of being seen, heard, and valued. Recognizing these behaviors isn't about blaming the other person, but about protecting yourself and finding the courage to let go of relationships that don't serve you. It's about finding the strength to walk away from toxic dynamics that drain you and choosing to invest your energy in relationships that build you up. You are enough as you are, and you deserve people in your life who will see you, hear you, respect you, and care for you in ways that honor who you are. Don't settle for less, and don't let anyone make you believe that you don't matter. You do, and that is what makes all the difference. When someone doesn't care about you, one of the most noticeable behaviors is their inability or unwillingness to listen. Listening is more than just hearing words. It's about actively engaging with another person's experience, acknowledging their thoughts, feelings, and needs. In meaningful relationships, this is how we validate one another and demonstrate that we are present, invested, and concerned. However, for people who don't care, listening becomes optional. And it's often clear that your words are not being taken seriously. In these situations, conversations become one-sided. They may only talk about themselves, or they might disengage entirely, offering minimal response or feedback. This lack of engagement can leave you feeling invisible and unimportant. It's as if you're speaking to a wall, waiting for acknowledgement that never comes. Over time, this can erode your sense of value in the relationship. If someone truly cares, they make space for your voice, taking the time to understand what you're saying and how you're feeling. But when that space isn't offered, it's a clear sign that the connection is shallow or missing entirely. It's not always a dramatic rejection. Sometimes it's subtle, a shift in the focus of the conversation, an inability to recall important details you've shared, or even just a lack of eye contact or distracted body language. These small cues all add up, and they create a pattern of neglect that can be incredibly hurtful. Listening is one of the simplest yet most profound ways to show care, and when someone fails to do so, it speaks volumes about where you stand in their priority. It's not about you being too much or asking for too much attention. It's about their inability to offer you the basic respect of hearing you. And When that happens, you're left questioning your worth in a space where you should feel valued. When someone doesn't care about you, they often dismiss your emotions, making you feel as though your feelings are not valid or important. This behavior can manifest in various ways, from outright minimizing what you're going through to using phrases like, "you're overreacting," or "it's not a big deal." In these moments, the pain or joy you're experiencing is trivialized, and your emotional reality is reduced to something that's unworthy of attention or care. This dismissal can be especially hurtful because it invalidates the very core of what it means to be human, to feel deeply, to have reactions to the world around us. What's even more damaging is that when someone dismisses your emotions, they're essentially telling you that you don't matter enough to be understood or supported. It's not just that your feelings are ignored, but that your experience is made to seem irrelevant, as though you're the problem for feeling what you feel. You may start to second guess yourself, questioning whether your emotional responses are justified or whether you're simply being too sensitive. This creates an environment where you are forced to either suppress your emotions or fight for their recognition, neither of which are healthy options. The person who dismisses your emotions is not offering empathy or understanding. They are creating a distance between you and them, making it harder to connect in a meaningful way. This behavior also sets a dangerous precedent. When someone dismisses how you feel, it becomes harder to trust them with your vulnerability. You begin to withdraw, keeping parts of yourself hidden because you fear being met with indifference or judgment. The deeper the dismissal goes, the more you lose the ability to fully express yourself without feeling misunderstood or belittled. Emotional connection thrives on mutual respect and validation. And when that is lacking, the relationship becomes hollow. It's not just that your feelings are dismissed, it's that ultimately you are too. A significant sign that someone doesn't care about you is their tendency to avoid accountability. When someone is unwilling to take responsibility for their actions or the impact those actions have on you, it creates a rift in the relationship that is hard to mend. Accountability is an essential part of any healthy dynamic. It's the foundation of trust and mutual respect. However, when someone doesn't care, they avoid owning up to their mistakes. They may deflect blame, make excuses, or even try to turn the situation around to make you feel at fault instead. Instead of acknowledging their behavior, they minimize its impact on you, or outright deny any wrongdoing. This lack of accountability can be incredibly damaging because it leaves unresolved issues that fester. Without someone taking responsibility for their actions, it becomes impossible to address the pain or misunderstanding that has occurred. Conversations meant to clarify or heal become circular, with no resolution in sight. You end up stuck in a cycle of frustration, unable to move forward because there's no recognition that something went wrong or that you've been hurt. Moreover, when people fail to take accountability, it shows that they aren't fully invested in the relationship. They might not care enough to engage in the difficult but necessary work of acknowledging their faults and apologizing. It's much easier for them to avoid the uncomfortable reality of their mistakes than it is to face them head on and make things right. This behavior speaks volumes about their priorities. It suggests that they value avoiding discomfort over the health and well-being of the relationship. What's worse is that this pattern often repeats. The more they avoid responsibility, the more you're left with the feeling that your concerns don't matter enough for them to take the necessary steps to repair the damage. In these cases, the trust you need to feel safe in the relationship begins to erode. When accountability is absent, all you're left with is a one-sided dynamic where you carry the weight of the emotional labor while the other person remains unaccountable for their action. A person who doesn't care about you is often unable or unwilling to offer empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share another person's feelings, to step outside of oneself and truly grasp what someone else is experiencing. It's one of the cornerstones of any meaningful connection, whether romantic, familial, or platonic. Without empathy, relationships become transactional, shallow, and ultimately unsatisfying. When someone doesn't care, they fail to meet you in your emotional space, choosing instead to remain indifferent or distant from your struggles, pain, or joy. This lack of empathy can be glaring in times of difficulty. If you're going through something hard, whether it's personal or professional, you might look to the person you care about for comfort, understanding, or even just a listening ear. But instead of receiving support, you're met with apathy or disinterest. They may brush off your concerns, belittle your experiences, or simply act as though they don't understand why you're upset in the first place. Their inability to empathize creates a wall between you, making it clear that your emotional experience doesn't matter to them. Empathy also plays a crucial role in celebrating your successes. When something good happens to you, whether it's a promotion, an achievement, or simply a moment of personal growth, a person who doesn't care may fail to share in your joy. They might not even acknowledge your accomplishments, or worse, they might downplay them. Instead of being happy for you, they may redirect the focus back onto themselves, leaving you feeling unsupported and isolated in moments when connection and shared happiness are essential. Without empathy, the relationship becomes a one-way street. You're left feeling misunderstood, alone, and emotionally drained. It's a painful reminder that the person is either too consumed by their own needs to care for yours, or simply unable to engage with your emotions in a way that feels real and validating. And when that empathy is absent, you begin to question the depth and authenticity of the relationship, wondering whether the bond you share was ever truly there. When someone doesn't care about you, they often disregard your boundaries, showing a complete lack of respect for your needs and limits. Boundaries are essential for protecting our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They are how we communicate what we're comfortable with, what we need from others, and what we are not willing to tolerate. Boundaries are an expression of self-respect, and they form the basis of healthy relationships. However, when someone doesn't care, they may consistently ignore or violate these boundaries without consideration or remorse. This disregard can manifest in many ways, from invading your personal space to overstepping emotional limits. A person who doesn't care might push you into situations that make you uncomfortable, whether that's asking for too much of your time, demanding things from you when you've said no, or making emotional demands that you're not ready or able to meet. They may act as though your needs are secondary to theirs, or that your limits are negotiable whenever it suits them. What starts as a small violation of a boundary can quickly escalate, leaving you feeling powerless and unheard. This behavior can be particularly damaging because it chips away at your sense of self-worth. When someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, it sends the message that your feelings and needs don't matter. You begin to question your right to assert yourself, and over time, this can erode your confidence and self-respect. You might start to believe that you don't have the right to say no, to ask for space, or to protect your emotional health. The constant pressure to accommodate the other person's needs at the expense of your own leaves you emotionally drained, as you are forced to prioritize their comfort and desires over your own. What makes this behavior so toxic is its cumulative effect. Each time someone disregards your boundaries, they reinforce the idea that you are not worthy of respect. And each violation chips away at the foundation of trust that is crucial for any relationship to thrive. Recognizing the behaviors of people who don't care about you can be painful, but it's also empowering. It's easy to get caught up in trying to make sense of these actions, often blaming ourselves for not doing more, being more, or somehow being the cause of their behavior. However, it's crucial to understand that when someone dismisses your feelings, ignores your boundaries, avoids accountability, or simply fails to listen, it is a reflection of their inability to nurture the relationship, not a reflection of your worth. In these moments, it's essential to take a step back and remember that you are deserving of care, respect, and love. The patterns of behavior we've explored are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a deeper issue. They reveal a fundamental lack of investment, empathy, and understanding. When someone fails to engage with you emotionally, or when they fail to respect your space and your needs, it becomes clear that they are not interested in building a meaningful connection. These actions demonstrate a lack of maturity, emotional intelligence, or sometimes simply a lack of care. It's important to note that we cannot change other people. We can't force them to listen, to empathize, or to take responsibility for their actions. What we can do, however, is choose how we respond and how much energy we continue to invest in relationships that don't nourish us. Understanding these behaviors allows us to better protect our hearts and our energy. It's not about labeling people or casting judgment, but rather about setting boundaries for ourselves and honoring our own worth. When we see these signs, we have a responsibility to ourselves to walk away from relationships that are toxic, draining, or one-sided. Choosing to let go doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're choosing to create space for healthier, more fulfilling connections. Ones where mutual care and respect are foundational. The truth is, we all deserve relationships where we feel seen, heard, and valued. We are worthy of people who will listen when we speak, who will validate our emotions, who will take responsibility when they make mistakes, and who will respect our boundaries without question. These are the relationships that nurture our well-being, strengthen our resilience, and allow us to grow. The behaviors of people who don't care may hurt in the moment, but they also serve as powerful reminders of what we do and don't deserve. You are not too much. Your feelings are valid. Your boundaries are important. Your voice deserves to be heard. It's easy to get caught in cycles of self-doubt when faced with people who don't treat us with the respect we deserve, but the key to moving forward lies in recognizing these patterns, understanding that they are about the other person's limitations, not ours, and giving ourselves the permission to walk away from dynamics that don't support our growth. In doing so, we make room for the kinds of relationships that lift us up, that challenge us in healthy ways, and that provide the care, respect, and attention we all need and deserve. And when we choose to stand firm in our worth, we not only create space for others who truly care, but we also deepen our connection with ourselves.